there's a lot of preventative work that's ongoing, particularly over the last couple of years, in conjunction with the university, regarding the education element, freshers are giving an input, and again, we'll have to get ahead of, the whole thing is, the purpose of this is to get ahead of this, the aftermath, the prevention of this, and the education around that's being put in. And the work that is going on in partnership with the council, the authority, with the universities, all trying to stop the education, and this may be incredibly naive of me, but we've got to try that. That's now being rolled out to the second year soon, because you can give that input in September on year one, but as you'll know, that's a distant area coming out. So that's been the kind of the push for this year, to go and speak to the second year students. Do we have to roll out the third year students? Again, if we don't try these tactics, these are all new tactics, that you're then pushed into that behaviour of trying to respond to the noisy parties. So there is a lot of work in conjunction going on between the local authorities, the police and the universities. So I think there has to be some recognition of that there's been an understanding of this problem. There's been a lot of drive and activity, particularly amongst the university and the local authority.
John, did you want to just say a word about Newcastle's approach?
Yes, so it's got me worried now. We do find, we find more students than we would want to. We're not proud about that. We regard it as a significant indication there's a big problem. The legality of it is, I understand this is concerned about this, and I would have to go back and consult our lawyers, because we waste around money, and because the problem is basically this, that come 18, students are adults. It's as simple as that. We have absolutely no control over an adult other than the fact that they've registered as a student, and as any member of the university, we have a certain power to fine if we believe the university is brought into disrepute, and that's the basis on which we take action. Yeah. Now, it has to be proportionate. We are not sovereign in this matter, that they do have a right of appeal if they so wish, to an Office of Independent Adjudicator. We use fines as a deterrent, and our records show that where that has happened, we do not have many repeat offenders, which does indicate that something's not home. Can I just make a more general point, though, which I think I would want to be open about this, because it is a significant issue. You mentioned sort of trying to solve the problem. I think this is such a systemic problem, as Terry said. This is not going to be solved. It can be managed. This will always continue to be a set of issues, and it will be a scale of issues that do need constant review and management. I don't think there's a magic wand. And I wish there were, because otherwise we would have waited ages ago. So we will continue to...
Sorry, just a second. This gentleman in the back has been very, very patient and has had a hand up for the last 10 minutes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so my name is Oscar. I've been a resident of Jesmond for 32 years. And given that I voted politely while this happened, I think a breakdown in politeness is not a problem solely concentrated within students. I think there are more problems in our society that people need to be realistic about. I am speaking completely in personal role. I'm a councillor in Blakemore. If you went to Whitelaw and then came back to most of Jesmond, you would say most of Jesmond is cleaner than Whitelaw. It's cleaner than Alzec I myself witnessed an initiation ceremony. When I was at the student union, I used to be an officer many, many years ago. That was banned. We told everyone it was banned. You would be expelled if you were caught organising an initiation ceremony. I couldn't believe I was seeing it 5 years later because it's completely wrong. And this was on a student, which is 90% long-term residents. Most people live there for 20 years. I was walking down the lane where the old dwellers, like the Mary dwellers, I genuinely could not believe that someone thought they could get away with this. And the neighbours I talked to either side were really genuinely upset because I don't want to get into it. It was very odd and disturbing, and they had children. It should never have happened. There are clear problems, but there's part of a broad social trend where more and more people think, as Jack said, they're entitled and they can do whatever they want. But we have to be honest, that is not a problem just about students. There's a broad social problem. We can't expect the students to behave better than everyone else, because lots of other people who are not students also behave better.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This lady has also been patient with the red scarf. Thank you.
I'm an academic at Jesmond Uni and also a PhD student at Newcastle Uni, so I'm very familiar with the internet as well as universities. I love students, so I do my job. I go to study at Newcastle, a lot of my students are there. One of the problems I really have is a small minority of students, so it does make things very unbearable. So I'm not going to go into the person who lives the dreaded patch just behind my house road, the person who revere can me and my 4-year-old daughter who were walking to West Jesmond Primary. I was once asked to students to turn the noise down. I was trying to last bottle. We got one which is on the Newcastle internet actually. And the most disturbing thing that I actually want to come into is health and safety. Like, where is it going to end? Last year there was a situation on Manor House Road back lane on Sunday after Halloween. A neighbour was innocently brushing his teeth. A body fell on the roof, fell off the garage roof. He was the students, police came around. There was a CID truck parked in front of Valley View Road the whole Sunday. My neighbour, who's an orthopaedic surgeon, who's a red nurse, was asked to go in. My neighbour asked me to come support her. While the police were sitting there, students were carrying more alcohol into the property. I know I have all the details of what I'm talking about, but the thing is, how are we going to ignore this? If that boy died, that would end massively in the press with being all over the world. And I see things like I've got knowledge of lots of things happening where I live, and I love students, I love what I do, but I do feel that the respect and some of the, and the other thing as well, I feel that if we're okay with that behaviour, we're not really helping the students in their own journey. That's the responsibility of students.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you. Panelists. Tony.
Yeah, I want to bring up a solution. I think we've heard really, really bad examples of outrageously disgusting behaviour. But really, I think what this meeting is about is trying to find some solutions. And I was recently staying with my cousin in Oxford, in the centre of where Oxford Brookes is. And he said they had had these terrible problems, exactly like us, until now. They've resolved, more or less. And this is as a result of what you can find on their website, which is the appointment of students. And I think the solution does need to come from students and not just staff. And just on the website, they have a student community warden scheme. They have a team of 16 student community wardens who are involved in providing advice and guidance to students living within the local community. And they also have a house champion scheme, which is a joint initiative with Oxford Brookes, Oxford University, Pacific Council and Thames Valley Police, which has recently improved its communications, launching a bulletin to improve market engagement. And my cousin said it was really since the initiation of this scheme that things have got better. So is that a solution that could be looked at?
Either of Adam or Jack have a view on that? Is that something that you think might be? Adam?
Yeah. I think we've touched on a lot of different points here, and I think it's a very complicated issue, and I think including students as part of the solution is one way to try and fix the problem. We've talked a lot about community and how people feel part of that community if it's such a change in nature of students. We've talked about respect and responsibility instilled in those students, And in my mind, this is a systemic cultural issue as well. We've talked about how Jesmond is perceived by the university market or as from other people coming to Newcastle. So I think including students as part of this understanding of the importance they have in the community is one way to go about trying to fix the problem. As I said, I don't know how to go about fixing that immediately, like I said. This is a culture thing that's been going on for a long time, but hopefully if we start developing actions, as the cycle of students changes, it becomes a norm, and hopefully we can get into solutions about how we can implement something along those lines.
Felicity, I saw you nodding there.
Yeah, I think that is very positive, and there's a balance. I mean, and Oscar's point is absolutely right. There are other wards in the city where antisocial behaviour, Jesmond's a safe place to live, which is why I've lived here for 40 years and don't intend to move. But on the other side of it, there are people who've heard about the individual cases where their lives have been made intolerable, and wherever that was in the city, that would be intolerable. And so when we talk, the question was about penalties and sanctions, and all the positive things which we'll go on to, but actually it does work. And I think it's just a bit disappointing where there isn't any of that. I'm not saying people should be like the extreme ones as people could be taking our courses, but it's the first warning. So we have a man in our ward for 6 months, had noisy parties all night, and if at some point, once it was the university, it just said, look, your neighbours said something, just keep it quiet, just so that it couldn't be a student, it could be a member of the student union, just to make it known that that person from the university is causing distress to somebody else. And it doesn't need to go any further than that. But I think that's nipping it in the bud, so that's part of it. I don't think we should say, oh, we don't want any of that. It is one of the solutions. It's not the only solution by any means. And there are systemic issues, there are much wider issues that we need to talk about, and we will probably not here, but we are beginning to talk about. But I do think the penalty thing, and that is disappointing in a way that we don't, the university doesn't see any responsibility. I'm not saying it should be a fine, a monetary fine, or just something that has a responsibility for the students living in the way that they interact with people in their community.
Here. I think the senior roles came over as very disinterested and rather arrogant, didn't know whether they could do anything and hadn't found out. I think that came over as really disappointing.
Okay.
And I think you should change your attitude. The university is hosted in the city, and with that sort of attitude, it wouldn't be welcome here.
Okay, well, thank you for that comment. I'm going to take another question. Is everyone happy with the arrangements for taking comfort breaks and having drinks and all that sort of thing? I think she may have gone home now. So sorry about that. But the conversation doesn't seem to make sense to take a break at this point. Alicia, I'm going to ask Alicia to put her question, because that maybe takes us up in a slightly different direction. Alicia.
I know we've discussed actions on the behalf of the students in the university, but what can residents do to be more welcoming?
Okay, so the question,
the question is basically, what can residents do to be more welcoming?
Okay, so maybe talking about community is part of the problem, or part of the solution perhaps, for residents to maybe be more welcoming, integrating students in that way. Let's see if our panel think there's anything in that idea.
Well, I'd like to ask Grace Hodge in the audience to describe her scheme, because it's one of the best, I think, to make students more welcoming in the area.
All right, Tony, thank you. Grace, do you want to explain what it is you do to welcome students on your street? And Grace, Grace, how would you gauge whether that's a successful approach? Thank you very much for sharing that, Grace. Hannah, did you want to say anything more on that? Felicity?
Just, I mean, we hear lots of examples of individual neighbours going to talk to their students when they move in. There's lots of examples of that. And usually the good relationships are built. I think to build on what Grace is doing as well, but it's that one-to-one, that sort of personal thing, and it just happens across Jesmond. I don't know whether there's any examples where they've had that introduction and there's been adverse effects that are useful to know, but certainly there's an awful lot of that I hear about.
Yeah, can I just say, when being on this, again, a complete new set of students every year, and the whole thing starts again every September. I've got to go through the whole process yet again with another 6 students. So I went across and introduced myself, and they were very nice. They were very nice people, and I thought this is going to be okay. And I went with the pause, and when they went, I put a big note right across the front there saying, "This is Park Central." And I thought, right, well, what I've said to you is really going in one ear and out the other.
Okay. I'm just going to ask you, audience, you've been terrific so far, but if you can just hang on to your comment, keep your hand up there, because some people are being really, really good and diligent and holding their hand up, and some are just kind of shutting out, and it's really difficult to share it if we're not all sticking by the same rules. But thank you for that comment. This lady in the middle with her hand raised.
I'm a student, very sorry for listening. Some of the comments I've heard is not actually pretty quite accepting, to be honest with you. I think in fact just about with my years but to hear some people dealing with students clearly from some disgusting incidents, tarnishing us all for the same rush isn't going to help. In fact, it's kind of, yes, I'm coming out of it more negative use it, if anything, creating more of a power than it is.
I think we're going to hear maybe there are some volunteer out there. This gentleman with the red.
Yeah, I lived in Headingley for 12 years. I moved to Jesmond because of the mixed communities we have. Things work in Headingley. There is more, and part of that is that there are signs up in the main residential street saying, "Shush, residential area." There is, I'm afraid to say, there is a police presence around. There's PCSOs around in high-vis walking around, and it works there. It works there in a bigger community, and the pub crawls going down Otley Road in full Smurf, fancy dress, etc. There's a hell of a lot of drinking, there's a hell of a lot of students there from 2 universities, but the community works with them, and the feeling is better. I think what we've got a bit of tonight is quite a polarised view. There's quite a lot of people come to vent spleen, because those people have a vested interest in having their voice heard because they don't feel listened to. We need to find a way to work together. We are a community that's mixed, but we need to have a degree of respect on both sides. And I agree, all of the students with the antics of a few. I was a medical student. I lived in the same house for 6 years. I worked alongside my neighbours afterwards. We do have people like that. We can't just be next to it. But we need to sort out where the problems are.
I'm going to just take one more comment or question from this gentleman here, and then I'm going to put it back to the panel. Yes, sir.
First of all, I am actually married to a Newcastle University student and live in Jesmond. And I was an open university student for sort of four years. In fact, I've been here since 2010, so I've also been a student here technically. I was one of the cutters, I'm afraid, but that was because the comments seemed to be what can we do to welcome students, or actually more welcoming to students. And I felt like we hadn't really resolved some of the other issues that were going on, and that was actually a sort of a less prioritised question. Of course, when I moved in, I went and knocked on my neighbour's door and spoke to them proactively, and students can do that too. When students moved into my street, I would speak to them, although it was rather with the subtext of telling them when they should put their bins out and when they should get them in. But yeah, I agree. I think that's a helpful thing to do. There's been, like this gentleman said, a lot of just reinventing, and it is sometimes a bit frustrating. You feel like you're being, not necessarily being listened to. I think that actually that there are, people to listen to you. It's just that there's not really anything can always happen from that as quickly as you would like. There have been some improvements today. I think with the Keep Jesmond Clean programme that's been going on. But I think the fundamental issue is one of responsibility, or a lack of any kind of locus for that responsibility. If you speak to the letting agents about untidy gardens with bottles in and smashed flats, they will say that it's the residents who are responsible for it. The residents who can't really get to do anything about it. I've only had one negative experience with the students, because most of the time it has been fine. Like individually, it's been fine. Like I say, I was a student, I'm married to one, before I was a university student. So most of the time it's really more of a matter of the size of the population on that. But if you speak to the letting agents, they won't take responsibility for it. The landlords sure won't take responsibility for it. And a lot of properties are not in great repair. And there was a mention of PDSA, purpose-built student accommodation. I bet they're managed properties. There will be a management agency emptying the bins. It will be the council that are doing it. Because the council has money. I think if you have a look at the amount of council tax that's probably being taken out by students that pay council tax, it would be very interesting to know what the stats are on that. Because the last I read was that Nick Ford was going down to Westminster to try and get more money. And there's a big council tax rate, which is
There isn't.
well, okay.
There isn't. No, wait a minute. This is wrong. There is not a drain because the central government refunds the city in respect of each of the properties that are
I think. All right. Why don't we, Felicity? Can we just come to you on that point?
Sorry, can I just finish? Because I've been waiting a long time.
Yeah, briefly, if that's okay.
Yeah, so what really needs to happen as far as I'm concerned is that I spend a lot of time going up and down back lanes with board and stuff, and it takes a long time. We need one person from Northumbria, one from Newcastle to walk for a job, but I do it, and it takes my time on my way to work with my kids on the drop off position. I've got someone else to do it. Walk around and go, right, that might be a problem, we need to do something about that. That one's a problem. Okay, I've got a list of ones where they've got bin bags built up in the yard. Take responsibility, get someone walking around to do it, because the council are too strapped to do anything about it. In terms of properties, get the management of the property to include garden maintenance. There's been some schemes, very well-intentioned schemes, to get volunteers to do it, but really those gardens need to be managed by the landlords of the agency to do it. And that responsibility needs to be put back on somebody that you've actually got some sort of recourse to, rather than having the whole 12-month cycle thing going where you can't do anything about it. That would be my solution.
Okay, so thank you. There's some good constructive suggestions there. Felicity.
Yeah, I don't want the question. There's a lot of things covered there. I mean,
Well,
I think one of the issues about the council tax is interesting, because gradually we're getting less and less money from the government So I think it's by 2020 there will be no revenue grant coming in from the government. So the business top up for the student will go. And so we're not getting. So it is. We're not getting council tax from students. I mean it's a scheme to support students. I'm not saying it's the students' fault, but the lack of resources coming in, and there's a lot of big population, is an issue. I mean it is an issue. There are lots of other issues about budget cuts. Some of the issues, things made about the rubbish, and that's sometimes where students don't have the right bins. And I think Jesmond is helping with that. In terms of volunteering, I mean, I'm one of the trustees of Jesmond Library. We work with a number of volunteers, from student volunteers. They're absolutely fabulous. They do an awful lot and bring a lot to the library. So certainly not tarring every student. And I think that's what we want to do, to engage more with students. But as you can see, this is almost a barrier to it. And that's what I said at the start. The incidence of a few students is causing a barrier which we don't want between for students to get more engaged. We'd like more students to register to vote, or they don't. We'd like more students to get actually involved in volunteering schemes, and that would be the priority for us, it really would. But until we can crack that, the problem that we have at the moment, which we're all working on, and we've had meetings about it, that will help to start doing more of the conversation, the positive things that we need to do.
I mean, John and Chris, the idea that rather than this gentleman walking up and down the back lanes, you employ someone or somebody you already have employed to do that, going up and down, I suppose, spotting which are houses with your own students in it. Being a little bit more proactive in that sense rather than waiting for complaints. Is that a runner as an idea? Who wants to start? John.
I think some of the ideas that come forward, I mean, the idea of Oxford books seems an idea. It's something we can certainly look at, and we have this joint working group now that's been established. We can look at that. The slight note of caution is about the university's purpose, which is we're an educational charity, and though we have millions of income, we have to spend that on educational purposes. Now, we do have people cleaning rooms and so on, we keep the estate and so on. So it's not out of the question, but I just want to give people the reason why, although we have a lot of money coming in, that has to be purposed for a charitable activity, which in our case is to pursue higher education. So we've just been slightly careful about how our charitable resources are being deployed, but I think it's an interesting point.
Use your business arm, the one that's building all the PBSA.
The PBSA is a private funded. The PBSA is a private institution with massive investment. Pension funds invest in £4.7 billion. That's PFS UK. It's nothing to do with the universities. It's private funded.
Leeds University pays a clear up after every term. We go around the van and clear the streets up the student area, and that's what we expect you to do. And so I'm disappointed with some of your response earlier on, so we're shrugging the shoulders there. There has to be absolute education staff. The trouble is, sorry about the student that we're testing, but she's a lovely neighbour, as all the people deal with. The trouble is that the people who aren't water funds aren't going to come to a meeting like this. So we do need some kind of ability to respond to what happens. We do need to have universities have some kind of impact that it's not from happening again. We do need this repeat.
Chris, do you want to just come back on some of these comments?
I mean, I'm very happy to discuss with John actually whether we can do something actually at the end of term or even during the year. I'm sure there's something we can do. We already both contribute to Operation Oak towards the policing. We pay about £25,000 a year each towards that. And yes, like Newcastle, we are a charitable association as well. But we'll certainly look at it.
Sorry, can I just pick up there? You say you pay £25,000 a year to the police.
Correct.
But this gentleman over here from Newcastle University just said that the money needs to be used for the charitable purposes of education.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. We've got to be careful about how those resources are used. Now, around the margins, is what I was indicating, you can make certain decisions, and in that case, we believe it's a good use of charitable funds to promote better community relations. So I'm not ruling it out. We do it already. It's a question of scale.
Came around and reduced my time walking around Black Lanes and emailing council members multiple times actually because I'm trying to do their head in as much as my head is being done in by doing.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Okay, I'm just going to again ask if you have something to say, just to raise this hand or that hand. And then I'm just going to take a couple of questions, and then Chris, I think we've got another one, haven't we? So this lady in the middle, yes. Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hi, so my name's Stella, I'm a councillor from North Jesmond. So yeah, I was just to comment. First of all, I love that students live in Jesmond. I'm sorry that the students here this evening felt, attacked by this. I just wanted to say at the beginning, one of the very early questions was about do we feel optimistic, and I do feel optimistic, partly feel optimistic because they said there's been this working group set up recently by the universities. So I am optimistic about students living in Jesmond. However, there was one comment I heard this evening from Newcastle University representative about managing the problem, which then took me back a little bit because I think it really does lacks ambition, really. And I think part of the problem is I slightly get the sense that we're here and we've got this working group now because in the university's views, because it made the press as well, you had this particularly bad term. I've spoken to residents, over the previous year, and for them, the level of bad behaviour wasn't acceptable. Then, from minority students, will make their lives really difficult. So we're here now because of this bad term, but I would really like to see, higher representatives of both universities taking on some responsibility, or like a kind of commitment, just like it's an aim to see it reduce, not manage it, be more ambitious, because that's how we act as councillors, and I think councillors can work really, really hard, and so that's what I would ask.
Yes, thank you. And then the gentleman just too along. Did you still want to make a point?
Yeah, if that's okay. Dan Perry, North Jesmond Council. I'll be brief. I just wanted to pick up on how problems got worse. I think in Jesmond, it's a minority of households, and I think now with social media, it's almost like a badge of honour for a very small number of students and households to have really big parties that really gets all over social media, and sometimes those can escalate and bad things happen, and it's kind of like, oh, whoopsie, and it's something to talk about with their friends. So I think that's one of the issues. So obviously solutions is important for this evening. So I dealt with a lot of issues last term. The most biggest subject that I dealt with last term, and I really want to work on solutions. And actually, I think what a lot of us would like, I'd like it as a resident. I think we want to make the sanctions work. I think we want the sanctions to be tougher, and I think that means as residents, I think that means report everything to the university, and report everything to the council meeting. They will follow up. As the police, I think we do need to be tougher. I understand that the police don't want to give students a criminal record necessarily if it's going to ruin their career for something relatively minor. But what we need to do is get a message out there to students that bad behaviour will not be tolerated. And if it takes an arrest and a prosecution, that will spread very quickly through the student community by word of mouth. And obviously as well, it comes back to the universities. We had a great meeting with John. Hopefully we can do more there. And I have to agree with some of the other comments. I think November, unfortunately, are lagging behind in terms of our responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Just one sentence, sir, if you don't mind. Just a sentence.
Social responsibility of the universities. You may be a charitable educational organisation. You are a big employer. You have a social responsibility for this community, and you need to start shouldering it.
Thank you. Alicia, again,
as well as universities, what are people who are selling their houses to students doing about problems? Because they are making an awful lot of money, and as students we pay for admin fees, and if it's going to make relations in the community better, could they spare some time or some staff to mediate between the community and regulate the things that are happening that are causing problems?
So we haven't really, I agree, we haven't really talked about landlords and letting agents and all this. And yes, gentlemen here, just in a sentence, sir.
Something lady said earlier about no response about what actions being taken. In fact, it's very rare we get any response, or we don't even, are not even being told which universities the students are at and whether they take any responsibility. All we've had from Northumbria University is an automated response saying how wonderful they are and how serious they take it. Thank you very much.
Okay, panel, we'll come back to some of those in a moment. Chris, do we have another question from?
We do. We're going to gallop through it because we are running slightly. It does come from Rose, but by the power of telekinesis, Dom is going to ask it. So it's a question from Dom.
Should there be a greater police presence in Jesmond?
Should there be a greater police presence in Jesmond? I guess there's only one person I can really come to for this, Carl.
Yeah, it's the $100 million question, and I use the word 100 million, and I'm not, as I said at the start, I'm not going to talk about what's happened in the last 5 years, but there needs to be a context of what the challenges of the police and our partners are facing. We've lost £100 million of our operating budget in the last 5 years. It's a significant amount of money. And I'll come on to some questions. What Northumbria Police, the stance that we've taken is we will protect frontline policing. So your traditional yellow jackets, and we have done everything we possibly can to protect that. At the heart of that, neighbourhood policing, there have been no numbers taken out of neighbourhood policing teams. We have reformed some of our teams. However, in Jesmond, there's been no police officers or PCSOs or inspectors or sergeants taking out that model. What we are facing as an organisation are some significant complex challenges with the withdrawal of some services due to obviously budget cuts, which we've touched upon. We are facing one of the biggest counter-terrorism issues we've had across Europe, as everyone watches the news. Safeguarding the vulnerable, mental health, very, very complex societal issues that unfortunately have dropped on our door. Sexual offences due to the kind of confidence in reporting everyone saw in 2012 around Operation U-Tree. If you don't know what that was, it was linked to Jimmy Savile and historic cases. That still runs now. Operation U-Tree was seen as a tipping point in that for the police service regarding historical sexual abuse. These are very, very complex cases that take a lot of resource and time. And I'm not dismissing any of the issues that are raised today, because as I said, that's why I'm here, to understand the issues. But you have to understand some of the decisions we're trying to make as an organisation. These are victims of the most serious offences. U-Tree was seen as a tipping point for the police service in 2012. With the recent football coaching scandal, we had 3 times as many victims in the first week as we did of the whole of U-Tree in that first week. So this is ever growing for the police service as an organisation. But we come back to what I said. Neighbourhood police and the Northumberland police have been protected. There have been no numbers taken out of Jesmond. Do we have to assess on threat, harm and risk now? Yes, we do. However, ASB is part of our 5-point plan, policing plan. We will deal with that. We just have to be smarter. We're working with the universities. Chris touched on Operation Oak. That's a funded post. So 2 police officers and 1 PCSO are paid for by the university to deal with the issues. Operation Oak runs on a Friday, Saturday night. We would love to run it every night. And that works in conjunction with the council, local authority, noise nuisance team. There's a staged approach at the universities regarding enforcement. We're just trying to be better and clever, because unfortunately I don't have the yellow jackets and I use clunky language to fling at every single issue, but we just have to be smarter, brighter. And what we're trying to do is true collaborative problem solving. It comes to Stella's point is, let's be ambitious. It's about preventing the issue before it comes. We're trying to prevent victims here. We're trying at ASB, that's what we're trying to do. We're working in partnership. Some of you may think I'm being incredibly naive, but let's aim for the stars. That's why we're here, and that's why we're trying to do that, and that's why, for me, we're trying to protect neighbourhood police as much as we can. However, it comes back to what the gentleman that said. We've got some significant challenges in Newcastle and Gateshead, which I have responsibility for. And every single day, everyone needs resource, and unfortunately, we'll really make some tough decisions as an organisation of service.
And being smarter in terms of policing, this might be one for any of our panel, but how can we help the police target their resource better? Do the universities give their feedback to the police and say these are the problem streets? Do the councils do that?
Yeah, and I think, Felicity probably want to answer this, but there's a distinct now, this working group, and speaking to the officers involved, and I won't steal its thunder.
No, I was just going to say that I don't think we need a greater police presence in Jesmond. We meet with the police regularly, and touch wood, we are a very low crime area of the city. And what we talk about when we meet just tends to be student antisocial behaviour. That's the bulk of the conversation. So I don't think, and when we hear about other crimes going on, police are very quick to respond, and they are there when you need them. In terms of what we've been talking about, and we do pay extra policing at weekends, particularly for some student behaviour. I would like to think we wouldn't have to do that, and we could spend the money on other things that we need to spend it on in the ward, but we do. So I think in terms of the police presence, I think exactly what you say, that we need to work together on solutions. The partners are working very well together, that we, as Dan says, report things when they happen, because they will be followed up either by the police or the noise team. Things will be happened by the universities. So that's what we need to do. We need to try and change behaviours and work with these people to do that. And we need to make sure that where there is problems, people are reporting it. But no, we are. I think the police presence is pretty good.
There was a question that came up on the screen from one of our audience members, I guess about the logistics of it. How exactly do these crimes get reported to the police? Is there a single point of contact?
And Paul might get on the out here, but there's distinct links between the university officers and the PCSO, who in essence work on this issue full time. So they will gather the traditional report methods via the telephone, via one-on-one, via emails, and via the intelligence that's shared amongst the council officers. Tracy McCann, I believe it is, one of the enforcement officers who's leading in this area. There's a pool of data that they will go through and identify hotspots where the team will go. And someone touched on the Halloween issue. What we try to do, support our we have special constabulary and we have the cadets. I won't deploy the cadets where it comes to ASB, but obviously the special constabulary and now the volunteers are starting to really come in and kind of support that operation. So in essence it's paid for, but then we can bring in more resource. We can just be bright and clever the way that we move that resource around. It's a bit of an enhanced response action on Friday, Saturday night. Trust me, Friday, Saturday night, right across the borough, it can be rather challenging, but we know that we have a resource here.
I mean, we have some hands in the audience. There's one lady up there with her hand very high up.
Can I just say that the police have been, when I've had to ring them about student behaviour, absolutely phenomenal. And when I've heard tonight, because I've moved away from where the student problem was, when I've heard tonight that the police are now no longer turning up, my heart goes out to the residents, because the one thing that's worked for me, and it's as this lady said, the gentleman said, year on year, I've gone along, hello, my name is, I live 2 down, happy to take your parcels in, this is what we do, blah, 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 however we don't put it in. Whenever I've had that problem, the police have been phenomenal. They've come out and they've followed us the next day, so I think their example is outstanding. I am appalled that anybody would come from a university and say, I'm the best person that is being sent tonight. If you turn up tonight, you have that hat, you have that job, you're obviously senior representative. If ever there was a bad example of the apathy of the Thunder University, I'm sorry sir, but you have displayed it tonight. You do not turn up to a meeting like this and say what you said. I'm here because I'm more or less being forced to come. I'm here with a job to do.
Thank you very much, Mohan. Very, very quickly, gentleman in the brown over here.
I just wanted to ask the police, do you think there's enough support from the university, or is there anything else that you believe the university could do to help you with you being under such pressure?
No, from speaking to the officers that are involved, when it comes to that collaborative partnership working, I was very impressed with the passion from the PCSO this morning around, and it's not just the university, it's the local authority, the noise team, around, if you look at there's a staged approach, and we haven't got time to go through it, but imagine a convoluted football, yellow card, red card process. Some of the numbers of these warnings that are getting dished out are huge. Hundreds of early warnings, hundreds of second warnings, fines, more stringent actions around fines being taken. And what the PCSO assured me this morning, Paul might be able to help me out, is we rarely have repeat offenders when we get in early. And it's that education and prevention, because for me, hand on heart, we can't as an organisation keep responding this far down the line. We've got to get to you. We've got to get ahead of demand. We've got to do things differently. I've been very impressed. The fact that there's private funding there. So hats off to everyone involved, universities and the local authority, trying to really help us. And Paul, I'm sure you're
absolutely agree. From speaking to the local sergeants, the local police, I think the most complimentary and the support from all important agencies. I've taken on something to take back, because there's some interesting points that people raised that probably we haven't considered, and we need to do that moving forward. But certainly, in terms of a partnership approach, we've got to do it.
I'm going to race through 3 three people very quickly, if I can just ask two sentences, if possible, from each of you, because I don't know if I can hands up very quickly. The gentleman in the brown jumper. Yes, sir.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Student accommodation is exempt from council tax. So are university halls of residence. However, and that's laid down by central government. However, central government has a scheme of compensation to compensate local authorities for the lack of that council tax, which the councils have to claim. So the question is, how much has Newcastle City been claiming, and what has it been using that money for? And couldn't it make sure that at least the streets are kept clean in Jesmond? Or is the money being spent generally on other boroughs?
Thank you very much. Our resident student in the middle there.
I was just wondering when thought that landlords and estates kind of on more the literary empiric side of things, that they have more resources to play, it's not moving for the time.
And the lady in the green behind us.
Yes.
As a landlord representative, probably here tonight.
Very quickly from
as a landlord representative, those types of clauses are actually in contracts. I've been involved 20 years ago. There was a big litter problem in the city centre. The city council didn't spend any more money to resolve the issue. What they did is looked at resources and redeployed the resources. So on a Saturday afternoon, there was more people there. There was actually litter collectors there collecting it instead of in the evening. And I think there is not quality, but a way that resources can be better deployed. I think that would alleviate some of the problems like litter.
Thank you. We will be coming back to the audience with a bit more substance, but we're now half an hour behind us getting.
Yes. So I'm just going to give the panellists just 30 seconds each just to sort of come up just with some final thoughts. And then I guess, what time is it? 12, blimey. The evening has really run away with us. But it would be good, wouldn't it, just to have some bullet points, wouldn't it, to take away. I know some of our guests have to leave very quickly. So, John, if I can start again with you, just some concluding, just a final thought.
So I'm grateful for the many positive comments and the concerns that have been expressed, and they're perfectly legitimate concerns. We know that students of today are the young professionals of tomorrow, so the two universities are training the region's dentists, doctors, nurses, lawyers, etc. And there is a rite of passage which many students, younger people, do go through. But with good direction of the sort that some people have outlined, it is possible to move this forward positively. Forgive me for being cautious. Forgive me for under-promising and hopefully over-delivering. I do think this is quite a deep problem. The lifestyle of a typical student may not gel perfectly with the lifestyle of a normal resident. And I do take very seriously the point that's been made that the rotation in house ownership or house occupation will be a barrier to a successful longer term. So every year we'll be coming back to certain issues again. But I think the mood tonight has been pretty positive. I thank people for participating and giving some indications that we can work with in the working group.
Thank you, John. Carl, just a final thought?
Just refreshing. So many people are here. We need the information to act. Paul's team will constantly advertise meetings. We're actually going to, as an organisation, start using Facebook and Twitter. About 15 years behind everybody else. However, it's really, really important that we have these issues and that we're here to hear this, because we're the ones that deploy the resources, and we will continually deploy to where we see threat, harm and risk of the community issues if we don't know about it. So keep an eye out for the community meetings. Please attend, please link in with the officers, your local officers. If we need to be more visible and do drop-ins at Waitrose or things like that where you might catch us. Some people can't come to meetings on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, but if we need to be more dynamic and think about how we engage and how we pick up on these issues early, please feed them in. Or you can click on our faces on the internet and send us an email direct. That's about how technological we're getting. Bear with us, we'll get there.
Thank you, Carl. Adam.
Again, thank you very much. I found this really informative, and I've tried to sort of sum it up in my own head. And what I'm getting from the room is that their issues are dealing with the situations that happen in an effective and efficient manner, whilst also celebrating good things that happen and strengthening the community feeling. When it comes to dealing with the bad things, the things I've picked up are about mechanisms about whereby people report them and how it's fed back and how it's done quickly and effectively to make your students or whoever is performing antisocial behaviours doesn't do it again. And also when it comes to resources, allocation of those effectively. But then when it comes to celebrating the good and building a stronger community, examples I've heard from Lady in the Green about making people feel welcome, and we talk about volunteering in the community. That is where those bonds are built. People who volunteer in the community understand the effectiveness and the part that they play in there. They're the ones who end up voting in elections to understand that they're part of a bigger picture. And with an ever-changing student body, trying to embody that so it's something that's valuable and recognised is one way we can slowly go about fixing those bigger issues while hopefully being able to tackle the bad points as and when they arise. I hope that sums up something. I hope that sums up as valuable.
Thanks, Alan. Jack?
For me, I think the way forward is reciprocation from both sides. I think the question earlier, which was put to the audience and the panel, was what residents could do to welcome students. I think that was the wrong question. I think we should be asking what can both sides do to definitely try and move forward and make things work. Now, I think as a bare sort of minimum, I think both points that were mentioned are really simple and easy things to do. Students introducing themselves, as well as, say, non-student residents introducing themselves to students, should be a bare minimum. The other thing was understanding different lifestyles. Now, I fully accept that a lot of students, the pattern, the way they work, the sort of nature of terms, the way exams fall and stuff, their student lifestyle does not necessarily fit with a traditional resident. Now, as much as a student has to realise that an average family or average student is working, their lifestyle doesn't fit theirs, and I think there needs to be reciprocation from both parts on that, of equal importance. What I would say is, I think there's two little points I wanted to pick up on that I didn't really get a chance to speak before. Landlords and letting agents, I think there's responsibility there, and I don't think we quite covered that topic properly. I'm not saying that students should be able to chuck rubbish out the back lanes and nothing happen, or it should be the responsibility of a landlord to do that, not at all. But I do think landlords get away a little bit with untidy properties, particularly chucking things out into a back lane at the end of a year, because it will get passed off to students. There's that to take into account. And the last thing that I would like to raise, and this is coming from a student point of view, is about the sanctions. Dano, we've already spoken about this before, and about the sanctions. I personally don't believe that necessarily the sanction or increasing them, from our side anyway, at the university is the way to go. In the sense of, we know that reoffending rates are very low after finding students won't. We don't get students won't reoffend. The issue then becomes increasing this fine. For example, a £30 fine to a student is often quite a lot. Now, a student that can afford a £100 fine flippantly can also afford £30 flippantly. The student that can't afford £30 can't necessarily eat for a week. And we've got to be careful the way that we do treat students. Now, we are happy enough for them to be a fully fledged adult to take on a huge amount of debt and a loan they will have to pay back one day. But we are also trying to implement something that, as an adult, they have a responsibility themselves to deal with, and we need to make sure that we're tackling that at the root of the problem rather than retrospective action, which does need to happen to an extent, but it's just bearing that in mind as well.
Okay, thank you for bringing those points up, Jack. Tony?
Yeah, I think we should have high ambition. I think things could get better, definitely. And I think I've got suggestions really for three parts of it. One is first is the universities. And I think really it does seem that there could be more money coming into the community, really, as a result of the problem. And this is at least needed because the university is seen by residents as a major cause of the problem, but they aren't seen as being enough of the solution. And I think this, for example, this clearing up at the end of each term would be fantastic. That would be a huge asset for the landmark universities. I think the student warden idea, it would be really good to see that being piloted. But the other two areas are the bars and the landlords, which I would reinforce this. Now, we're trying to work with bars to develop a partnership agreement. Because basically, the bars have a big responsibility for this problem. Around the country, they're the ones making huge profits out of antisocial behaviour. So, and finally, the landlords, I think, the HMO landlords have a responsibility. The licence holder has a policy to take action in the event of ASB. I'm not sure if they're doing that, and I think we need to have more of a dialogue with the landlords about really controlling what's going on in their houses.
Thank you for those suggestions. Felicity?
Yes, when I came in tonight and voted, I voted positive, and I'm still more or less positive now. I think one of the reasons I'm positive, and I was, the problems residents have has been recognised. It is recognised. You know that nobody should be living like that, and that's been recognised, and we're all committed to a solution. I think that's positive, and also that we're actually at the table, so we are not saying it's going to happen. We are going to make sure that something does happen. So I always feel more positive sometimes when I can actually be involved. I can't necessarily solve everything, but it's good that we councillors are at the table and involved, and we hear directly from residents what the problems are. I think some of the solutions are very positive, and it's so good that both the student unions are actively wanting to help with this problem. I think the positive side, there are issues with landlords, and when we spoke to students, so many issues about the quality of the property that we need to help students with. There are a number of issues coming from that as well that we will follow up. So I think genuinely this partnership is positive. Having said that, if we come back next September and we have the same type of problems we've had this September, then none of us will have achieved what we need to do. So I think we need to be very, very, as Stella said, ambitious that we do need to solve this problem, because we don't want to be back here next year doing the same conversation.
Thank you, Felicity. And finally, Chris.
The Thunder are very keen to play their part and actually help in the situation. We're very happy to work with Newcastle in terms of cleaning up at the end of term, the end of the summer, and we do take it very seriously. So apologise if I gave the wrong impression before. We do take it seriously, and we'll look what we can do with regard to being more responsible actually in terms of a charter for students and how they behave in the community.
Thank you very much. Chris, do we think we can do this? Bullet points?
I have a 16 point plan.
16. All right, go on then. So,
first off, you were asked a question at the very start by Rosa, whether you thought there was a problem, and you showed your hands, and then whether you thought there wasn't a problem, you showed your hands. Perhaps, I don't know, there's been an awful lot of heat and maybe some of you think not an awful lot of light. Has anybody come out with this more enlightened?
Optimistic.
Ask the question again at the end of this term.
Okay. We'll ask it again then a little bit. In that case, we'll move on to the 16-point plan. It does seem to break down into different areas. We had from the university, one of the first things was trying to deal with the leaders of the sports societies. We know from our reporting that that has been an issue. Trying to nip that problem in the bud is always an important thing. Finding people more regularly, though obviously we've had from Jack the indication that an awful lot of money to some people is even more to a student, given their budgets. We have the idea of student community borders, which does seem like a feasible idea. The university and the community working in tandem. I know that already happens with the JLA in some cases, but perhaps a bit more working together could be helpful there. We have the idea of patrols, one person from Northumbria, one person from Newcastle, whose job it is simply to try and tackle the solution head on before it gets too bad. There was the Leeds model. The university's paying for clean up at the end of every term. If that happens, why shouldn't we try and fix it? We had, again, sort of more proactive sanctions. I know we've already said that in terms of fining, but maybe the warning system becomes a bit more robust. And then we also had more money coming from universities, which is, I guess, always going to be the solution, but perhaps not a practical one, depending on your thoughts. And then for the community, there seems to be some things that can be done. There was a tweet that came up through the debate from St George's, which was a very interesting one. I don't know if you've been tracking the screen. You're not going to find it. about sort of proactively putting classes on to prevent that sort of bad behaviour getting into a sort of normal routine, trying to help people become more community with each other. Then we also had Grace's idea of providing more detailed information to students about bin collections, things like that, small details that can perhaps make a world of difference in terms of preventing litter, which is obviously one issue that always comes up with JesmondLocal. James Vesty, who was one of our student reporters, had a very nice idea, which was hashtag roasts for Jesmond, forced roasts for Jesmond. So, as a permanent resident, could you perhaps invite your student neighbours around for a roast on Sunday? Get to know them a bit better. And then we had the idea of go volunteer Jesmond. So we had a student who volunteers elsewhere in the city. Jesmond is often overlooked because the fact is that we are quite a well-off area, but perhaps we need that sort of volunteer spirit from the students to come through for us. On the council, there was the idea of more signage, simply actually prodding people into saying this is an area where people need to be quiet. Just a simple shh might help. For the police, there was more visibility on patrols and again, more sanctions to be tougher and more attractive. And then for the landlords, which we don't have anybody on stage for that, there was the idea of putting garden maintenance into the amount that students pay each time. And perhaps one idea that we didn't quite discuss is the idea of the deposit students pay, deposits for breakages in the house. Perhaps they could pay a deposit for being part of the community, and then that gets taken away for bad behaviour. And then there's us, JesmondLocal, and the community in general, which is we need to do better, frankly. We've managed to draw a very respectable audience, but sadly there's not an awful lot of residents who are students here. And I think that's maybe a lesson for us as JesmondLocal, maybe a lesson for all of us, whatever affiliation you have, whether you're out in the audience, that perhaps it all ultimately comes down to engaging with people who come to the community. And trying to do that is good. And frankly, you can do that through the roast idea. I quite like that.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was a Herculean task, and I think we've come to the end of our time. Tony, did you want to have one very quick thought?
There was something I forgot, which is the website. There's a strong feeling that the universities who've got material on their website is attracting students because it's part of the city. Please can the websites be removed and changed if that's the case.
So maybe that's something we add to the list as well. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our time. That list will be available on our website. You can replay the whole conversation, the whole discussion that we've been live blogging on our website, probably, from tonight. Can I just say some words of thanks? Thanks again to RGS for hosting us. Can I say thank you to our students, our volunteers who've actually organised most of this event, who've actually come up with the idea and then have filmed it and reported on it. So I'd just like to say a thank you to them. They all do this in their own time. This is not something they do as part of their courses. They do it because they want to learn responsible journalism. And then finally, a big thanks to our panel. They could have been, as I said at the beginning, somewhere else. It's not the most comfortable task to sit up here and be accountable for your organisation. So I'm really grateful to them for their ideas, and hopefully we'll see some fruit from tonight's discussion through collaboration with the various people on the stage. So will you please show them your thanks tonight. Thank you very much. Thanks, folks. Safe journey home. I know you only have to walk, but take care. Have a good week.
been in a while. Yeah, I haven't seen him in months. Ciao.
Why are you meeting councillors?
Rota is my friend. We were all meant to bring 10 people, and I was going to bring
Are you coming inside?
Yeah, I can't.
Where were you?
Up there.
Oh shit, were you?
Something like getting involved.
Where was Alicia?
Next week.
Hey. What are you doing now?
He's desperate to go for a drink. I can't. No, like out for a drink with people, but I can't.